Senator Tom Carper. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I want to again applaud you for your steadfast support for doing what's right. I first stepped into this room, Chris, Mayor, President. I first stepped into this room 22 years ago this month. I was just elected as a U.S. Senator. I'd been governor of Delaware for 8 years before that, and congressman and treasurer before that, and naval flight officer for that. I'm the last Vietnam veteran serving in the U.S. Senate. And I wanted to be on this committee, in the Environment and Public Works Committee, because the issues are so important to our planet, and the issues are so important to our economy. For a long time, people didn't think we could ever get together our heads and our votes on comprehensive infrastructure legislation, but finally we did. People didn't think we could get our heads and hands together to produce bipartisan legislation that addresses climate change and make sure that in the face of that adversity of an ever-heating planet, we could actually create jobs and economic opportunity. But we did that too, and against all odds. I'm one who believes that some of the hardest things to do are the things most worth doing. And I'm delighted to be here today with my friends and our colleagues. So welcome to our hearing room. I think this is a place that if the walls could talk, it would say a lot of good stuff that would encourage us today as we take up this battle again. Every day we work in the shadow of our Capitol, a beacon for democracy around the world, and yet an historic injustice still prevails. There are nearly 700,000 Americans who call the District of Columbia home, and they do not have a voting representative in either chamber of the Congress. These Americans are hardworking residents who pay the most in per capita federal income taxes in the country, but have no say in how those dollars are spent. Let me just say that again. These Americans here in the District of Columbia, the citizens of the District of Columbia, are hardworking residents who pay the most in per capita federal income taxes in the country, but they have no say in how these dollars are spent. These Americans here in the District of Columbia are law-abiding citizens who look after one another, but who have to wait for federal approval of local judges, sometimes for years, or help from the National Guard in times of crisis. These Americans are service members who risk their lives for our country, but who come home to find they are still denied a vote in Congress. As the last Vietnam veteran serving in the Senate, I take this next fact particularly to heart. Listen to this, more than 14,000 Washington, D.C. residents are currently serving in the military today, and can be sent into a battle in a war that about which they had no say in fighting. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. With Republicans now in charge of the House, our work to pass this bill has become even more challenging. But let me share with you, if I can, a quote that was said on the House floor in 2007. Here it goes. The fact that more than 500,000 Americans live in the District of Columbia and are denied a single voting representative in Congress is clearly an historic wrong. And justice demands that it be addressed. And the Speaker goes on to say, I believe that kindness demands that we do the right thing for all Americans, regardless of race or political creed. Those are the words of then Republican Congressman Mike Pence. He was right then, and he would be right today. At its core, this isn't truly a Republican or a Democratic issue. It's an issue of basic fairness. When my friend and former colleague and mentor, Senator Joe Lieberman, first passed me the baton for D.C. statehood in 2013 as he was leaving, I knew we had justice on our side, and over the last few years, we've gained a fair amount of momentum, too. We will not give up today. Through the tireless work of Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, last Congress, the House passed their bill to grant Washington, D.C. statehood for the second time, not the first time, but for the second time ever. And here in the Senate, with the support of my friend Chris, we have built enormous support for our bill over the last few years, and we even have the support of a fellow who serves as President of the United States, Joe Biden. This Congress will continue making the case to my Republican colleagues that D.C. statehood is not a Republican or Democratic issue, but an issue of fairness and equality. I'm reminded of the tie that binds every major religion on this planet: Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism. These religions have their differences, but they all have one thing in common: the Golden Rule. Every one of them. You can find in their sacred scriptures the Golden Rule, the admonition for us to treat our neighbors as we would want to be treated. It's imperative that we live up to the core principles of our nation: no taxation without representation, and all men and women are created equal. I want to thank our mayor, Muriel Bowser. I want to thank City Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. I want to thank you for your continued leadership to push for equal rights and for equal representation for Washington, D.C. residents. I also want to thank my friend and colleague, Senator Chris Van Hollen from Washington's neighboring state of Maryland, for being here with us and for his leadership. I'll close with this. A British abolitionist named William Wilberforce once said these words a long time ago: "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you did not know." These are the words of a man who led a fight against all odds for decades, in an effort to convince his colleagues 150 years ago in Parliament in Great Britain that their country should oppose the injustice of the slave trade rather than be complicit in its continuance. I am confident that history will look favorably upon all of us who refuse to look the other way in the face of this injustice today. And with that, I'm pleased to present to you my friend and our colleague, Senator Chris Van Hollen, from the great state of Maryland. The three of us, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia together, are Delmarva. He's my Delmarva buddy. All right, nice round of applause.